Hello, everyone, and welcome to Admissions Live, the weekly web show for admissions professionals and college counselors alike. We're part of the Higher Ed Live network, which is all about digital development and professional empowerment. We've got Gil Rogers tonight on the show, and we're talking about networking, both online and offline. As always, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to get to the show. But before we do that, a quick thank you and shout out to the sponsors that make Admissions Live possible. Admissions Live is sponsored by Welcome to College, who believes it's all in the visit. They've created web and mobile applications to help institutions measure and manage that most critical recruitment tool, the college visit. There are now over 15,000 ratings on Welcome to College's website, so it's time to head over to welcometocollege.com and check out how your institution is stacking up. Admissions Live is also sponsored by Integral, the creators of the Schools app on Facebook. Check out their webinar series about how private social networks can increase yield and retention. That happens tomorrow and nearly every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We've sent out a tweet to that link, so be sure to sign up if you haven't done so already. Admissions Live is sponsored by Scavenger, a Google-funded mobile game about going places, doing challenges, and earning points. Check out their recent article from the Chronicle of Higher Education about how Dartmouth College Admissions is utilizing Scavenger for fun admissions events and tours. Making much of tonight's show possible, Admissions Live is sponsored by Zinch.com, the leader in social admissions. Is your program being bombarded with college applications from Chinese applicants? Zinch is offering a free webinar next Wednesday, March 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. The Zinch China team will review best practices in two critical areas. First, the applications themselves, evaluating credentials, assessing extracurricular activities and awards, and conducting interviews. Second, they'll cover managing Chinese social media while ensuring that your brand is being protected against misuse by agents and others. We've sent out a link to that webinar, so be sure to check out and register now. Alrighty. We're getting ready to start the show and introduce our guest. Again, tonight's guest is Gil Rogers, the Director of Marketing and Outreach at Zinch.com. While you may know Gil as a member of the Zinch team, who sponsors Admissions Live, our decision to have him on was entirely our own. We wanted to have a chance to talk with him about networking efforts, both from his own experience in higher ed and the efforts that he's making with Zinch with their social media admissions campaign. Let's welcome Gil to the show. He's joining us tonight from sunny San Francisco. It was sunny earlier. Is it still sunny now?
Yep, it's still sunny now. It's sunnier than Connecticut. That's where I started this morning. So
cool,
it's been a high mileage day.
Cloudy in Rochester, which is usually how it goes in wintertime here.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm excited to be chatting with you tonight. Hope you are
Thanks
too.
for having me. Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we're going to talk about networking tonight.
Sure.
And I work in two different capacities in higher ed. I work in admissions, and I also work in some of our web capacities and social media. So I see a really big disparity between admissions folks that I work with and the web folks that I connect with, and my networks are completely different. One is much smaller than the other. You want to talk a little bit about your higher ed experience and if you saw that change when you moved into your role at Zinch? Did you see a similar difference in networking yourself?
I think there's definitely a somewhat of a difference, simply because of maybe understanding of resources, understanding of the tools available. Time constraints might be part of the difference there. I mean, I came to Zinch about a year ago after working at the University of New Haven in Connecticut for about 5 years. And I mean, I was very fortunate because I had a associate vice president who was very supportive of a lot of the things that we were doing. So our team was very well connected, using LinkedIn, using Twitter, being part of online open houses and virtual events, those sorts of things. So I had the opportunity to present at a bunch of conferences and webinars and those sorts of things. So there's a lot more of opportunity that I've been able to have to be able to connect with people outside of my own institution. And I think that's the huge value of networking in higher education, is meeting people from outside of your institution so you can learn from them, bring best practices to your school, and then obviously be able to pursue opportunities for advancement and growth as well.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. So I want to know, thinking back on your higher ed experience, do you think that admissions folks are maybe a little scared to reach out into the network because of a competitiveness factor between schools? Or is it just that they don't know how to network or know the tools that are available to do networking? I'm not sure.
I don't know if it's necessarily scared or competition. I think that, there's always going to be a little bit of you don't want to share your best practices or share your tools of your trade with other people, because then other people are going to start doing what you're doing. But there's always a little bit of positive to that, of the competitiveness of, you have to be always looking to the next thing. You always have to be looking to grow and change what you're doing. I think a lot of the disparity in networking and the admissions side of higher education really has to do with time constraints, and has to do with maybe lack of understanding of the different sites and resources that are out there. But I've been to many college fairs where you end up talking to the people next to you at multiple college fairs within a consortium, or within a number of weeks, passing each other in the hallways, visiting high schools, those sorts of things. So there are opportunities for networking outside of higher education, or in admissions within higher education, outside of just technology online, taking advantage of those. That's how I got my job at the University of New Haven, was talking to the rep at the table at the University of New Haven when I was working for the University of Hartford. So cool. Big unsolicited shout out to Steve Brown at the University of New Haven for getting me a job. So absolutely.
So yeah, some great points you just made there. So admissions folks, and thank you for acknowledging the incredible time constraints that most people on the college admissions side of things work under, and the high school side of things as well. Really being able to try to find the time in your schedule to reach out and network can be a kind of overwhelming thing to add to your to-do list for the day. But what I found jumping into networking online during the day, during my normal work day, is that it actually ends up saving me time in the long run, where when I come to a stopping point in my job where I don't understand how to do something, or I have that creative block for ideas, I now have an incredible network that I can just reach out and connect with those people anytime during the day and get feedback or get resources. And so while it seems like it might slow you down during the day, I find that it really actually has been a huge benefit to help speed up those to-do lists.
And that's a great point, because I think that you're doing some unique things at your school, and I'm doing some unique things at my school, and we all have the same mission. We're all trying to do the same thing, and that's connect students to opportunities with higher education. And to be able to lean on other people's experience and share that experience is something that's going to help you. So taking those 5 minutes to hop on Twitter and see what people are talking about, or going onto LinkedIn and posting a question to people, or sending a message to a contact that you met at a college fair last year, it's definitely a good investment of your time. So
right. And competitiveness within admissions is something that's really interesting to me too. I think we have a sense that when we're doing a marketing campaign or we're hosting a program about our college or about our campus, that we don't want to share those things, because if a competing college sees what we're doing and steals that marketing idea, then we're doing ourselves a disservice, and it's not going to work. But it's a topic that I really hope to talk about more, and I plan on discussing at the EDU Guru Summit, that if you're doing your marketing campaign the right way, it should only work for your institution.
Yep, agreed.
And so that should really break down that competition, that idea that there's even a sense of competition in the market. Because if you're really marketing to the students that are right for your school, it shouldn't compete with a school that is similar to yours. So I'm hoping that we can kind of break down some of those barriers and open up the ability to network and actually get some things done. And I think we started touching on some of the points that we wanted to get to later in the show. But before we do that, I want you to talk a little bit about the philosophy behind social admission and that campaign that you're working on at Zinch.
Sure. Well, social admission is the mantra of a lot of the things that I've been working on with just bringing people together and having people share ideas and see best practices and be able to get connected to information that will help them to be able to do their job. So what we've started is a LinkedIn group and a Twitter account that the intent of them is purely to support people in the admissions industry with being connected to information that's helpful to them. So, for example, with our social admission group on LinkedIn, the philosophy behind that is we have zero spam. We've had people that have come on and posted promotions for their services and consulting services and what have you. But what we try to do is keep it to a resource for folks to be able to come on, see kind of hot topics in college admissions, and be able to see what new tools are available or what resources are available, and to be able to discuss those and see if they've been working for them and that sort of thing. We have close to 400 members that have signed up all organically. We don't have a huge advertising campaign or anything for this. It's just purely finding it from our email signatures and referrals from members of our team. And then we also have Social Admission, which is our Twitter account that it's kind of in support of the LinkedIn group. So when we're online and we're communicating with thought leaders within the industry, we are listening to what they're talking about, and when things are getting heated up in a conversation or some information is helpful to that we think would be helpful to our followers, we retweet that, participate in the conversation. But again, we don't do any kind of sales promotions or any pitches like that with those. The idea is that you're busy, you're trying to get through your day, but you might want to be able to find some resources, information, and stay educated on what's going on. So our hope is that we can effectively connect you with a lot of that great information for you to be able to do your job.
Yeah, and I think you do. I've been following Social Admission. I'm a member of the LinkedIn group, and we've sent out a few tweets with those links, both to the Twitter account and to the LinkedIn group, and it's great. It's the way that LinkedIn should be used. I can't tell you how many groups that I've joined and unjoined on LinkedIn because it is purely spam, or it's a channel for people to ask for a job. And I'm not in the job giving business, so that's not really a good use of my time to be part of those membership boards. But lots of really great discussion going on there. I'm also going to send out a link to another LinkedIn group that I think is doing it right. The group from Michael Zarek, what's the name of his group?
College Counseling for the Rest of Us.
Thank you. I was totally hitting a blank
go.
there. College Counseling for the Rest of Us, geared a little bit more towards those high school counselors and independent counselors, but it's great for admissions folks to get in there too. So I'm going to send out a link to his LinkedIn group. Both are very effective groups to join, and if you are looking for resources or if you're looking to get feedback, those are two that I would definitely recommend.
Michael's doing some really good things down in New Jersey. He's a good guy.
Michael is awesome. He was the second guest on my show. I was really happy to have him. So shout out to Michael. So let's talk a little bit about trends. When we started the show, we talked about some of those more traditional ways of networking for admissions counselors when you're out on the road, maybe meeting with other people. But what's new? What kind of things are trending out there? What are new ways that we can start connecting folks?
Well, I know of, outside of Higher Ed Live and Admissions Live, there are constantly new ways that people are trying to connect and trying to share with each other. I mean, last week I was at the ED Universe launch party in Boston, and ED Universe is doing some really cool things where they bring together thought leaders in higher education and people who are just doing some really amazing things with student affairs and marketing and communications, and their site is essentially a social network for people who are who are excited about the industry and want to collaborate and share and be a part of the conversation. So that's something that's definitely very exciting, and it's something that I'm proud to be a part of as well. I know that Mike Petroff at Emerson, he created a great Twitter kind of directory for people in higher education who to follow EDU. That is a great way for you to be able to search on specific topics and to be able to connect with people interested in specific topics. So if you're thinking about that 10 minutes of your day where you're stuck on something and you're trying to collaborate with someone or find some information, those two resources are probably great ways to get connected with people who are active online, because they're not going to really proactively become parts of these sites if they're not if they're not going to be responsive to your requests for information. So I think that going to the people who are actively looking to be in places where they're going to be able to connect with you is probably the best way to connect with those people. I mean, just sending a random tweet with a hashtag admissions on it may not necessarily get the best response as maybe going to these portals that are dedicated to connecting you with these types of folks.
Yeah, so maybe if we can back up for, I think, the large majority of admissions folks that I know and work with who have no online presence. Maybe they've gone so far as to create a LinkedIn account. They have a Facebook page, but that's something that they use for their own personal lives, and don't want to connect it with their work life. I think the Follow EDU network is a great way to start if you're thinking about joining Twitter and developing it for a professional network. Great place to really get started and start connecting with folks in your field. And so creating that online presence, creating your own personal brand online, that's something that is very new, and something that I think recent graduates from college are being educated in, or I hope they're being educated in. But for those that are outside of, outside of that side of education in the past 10 years, it's not something that they were taught. So that's something new. Blogging is another way to start connecting or to start making your voice heard. It might not be for everyone, but I think maybe the right way to start is finding that niche network, understanding what your goals are, and trying to find out where those like-minded people are with the same kind of goals. So, can you speak to any of that? Anything about tips for personal branding, or if you think blogging's the way to start, or if you think Twitter's the way to start, what would you advise people who really want to get started but don't know how?
Yeah, well, my position with blogging is blogging definitely isn't for everyone. My entire perspective on producing content for the web is if you want it to get any legs and spread virally, it needs to be worth sharing. So if you're more of in the mind of you're trying to find information, you're trying to learn, which I mean all of us hopefully are lifelong learners in higher education. You may not necessarily be in a position to create a blog and to be posting content there, but reading blogs and having a reading list to pull from, and then taking content that you find interesting and sharing it via LinkedIn or via Twitter are great ways to still be involved in the conversation. And I mean, to back up a little bit, let's talk about LinkedIn for a minute. I mean, Business Insider last week published a chart that showed that 18% of its members are within higher education, and that's the largest segment of their population. Now, a lot of those are probably current college students who are graduating from school soon, and they're listed as students, so they're in higher education. But there's still a lot of folks that are on LinkedIn that are within the group of higher education. If you look at the group statistics of the Zinch social admission LinkedIn group, we are predominantly directors and decision makers in colleges and universities have joined our group. So LinkedIn is a great portal to be able to connect, and when you're trying to find people. And I mean, the stigma with LinkedIn is, you're only active on LinkedIn when you're trying to find a job. If that were the case, then I'm looking for a job every day because I'm on LinkedIn every day, and I'm not looking for a job every day. So the reality is take advantage of the platform and what it's designed to be and what it's designed to do. So I think definitely personal branding, the first thing, and I mean I think the fact that many college students are making that segment of the population be that big of the LinkedIn membership shows that LinkedIn is definitely the starting point for managing your online brand, if nothing else, to just get your name in there and to be able to have your virtual resume, kind of like what we do at Zinch with students and encouraging students to create a profile for their college search. So if you're a college student looking to go off to be looking for employment, having a LinkedIn profile to get you in the search results is definitely helpful.
And I think you're making some great points about that stigma around LinkedIn. That I only go to LinkedIn when I'm looking for a job, or maybe you're looking for someone's email address that you don't have, or something like that. You use it for that kind of a professional resource. And Lori Packer from University of Rochester is on the back channel talking about how she isn't using LinkedIn. That's one of those networks that she's not using. And for me, I really wasn't using it until I found the groups that are doing it right. And when you can find a discussion that's centered around your goals and your needs, that's providing you resources and conversations, and not spamming the heck out of you, that's where you're going to find that LinkedIn works. Otherwise, I'm not too sure. Some of the other capabilities that it's offering, I'm not too sure how that really helps.
The other thing that I use LinkedIn for a lot, to be honest, is news, because you can follow companies and you can follow certain topics. So I use that as because I have like Google News Reader and that sort of stuff, but I never go to it. But I'm on LinkedIn all the time, so I have it set up so that I can see news relating to higher ed and technology and those sorts of things, which then drives, from my perspective, the content that I can then share via our LinkedIn group, via Twitter, and be a part of an active dialogue. And part of being part of the active dialogue is being informed, and so by continuing to read and be informed, I'm able to participate.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think my biggest takeaway from these new and emerging trends is that it is helpful to be present. It's important to at least try to put yourself out there and network online, because you can't do your job in a vacuum. If you're going to stay current, if you're going to save yourself some time by surrounding yourself with people that are doing the same job and have the same kind of goals, you have to find that niche network to engage yourself in. And there are a lot of them out there. I just don't see a lot of admissions folks taking advantage of it. And there's so many more folks that I think should kind of be stepping up and putting themselves out there and helping us all reach some of those bigger goals that we haven't been able to reach yet, because you can't do it by yourself. Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the more non-traditional things. What still works? How about this in real life, face-to-face communication that we used to do? Can you still pick up the phone and call another institution, or look through a directory and email someone at another institution and ask them, hey, I just had a question for you about what you do, and can you expect a response that way? Does that work?
I actually had that happen to me a few times when I was at University of New Haven. I'd have people that would call just to say, I saw you on the list of presenters at whatever conference, or I saw you on the reference sheet for some company or whatever. So I think if you call with a purpose, right. And I think looking at it from an admissions perspective as opposed to a solutions provider or a partner, I would say that I'd be more apt to take that call because you're a colleague. So I would say if you have a specific thing that you're working on and it's relevant to that person that you're calling, I'd see no reason why you shouldn't be able to just pick up the phone and call. And I know it's strange, but think about it. You're picking up the phone to call a 16-year-old kid to see what they're interested in coming into your school. So why not call someone that's your own age to talk shop, So sure. I think there's definitely some legitimacy to that. I think there's a veil of the digital environment that keeps us from doing that more frequently. But I think that it definitely isn't a bad thing, especially if you follow it up with if you leave a voicemail, follow it up with an email, traditional ways that you reach out to people to ask them about information.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that I feel comfortable doing that. I think your first example is you gave a presentation at a conference. And I think in a lot of ways, in a lot of cases, you're at the end of your presentation saying, please email me with feedback. I want to hear from you, those kinds of things. But I don't feel that comfortable just reaching out to someone that's doing awesome work if I don't have that other connect, an introduction from someone else, or I go the online networking route and see if I can find them on Twitter. I feel more comfortable contacting them there because I know that person is trying to put themselves out there and connect with folks. So that's just my personal take on that. What about when you're out on the road? Admissions folks are on the road pretty much half of their lives, I would say.
And the other half, they're sleeping in a hotel. So
yeah, or reading,
or reading applications.
Or buried under applications, sure. Yeah, so I think there's a lot of networking that just kind of happens organically for admissions folks when you're on the road. And for those of you that are tuning in that are not in admissions, what happens to us is we get lined up in alphabetical order and we travel around together. And it's a lot of fun most of the time. Sometimes it can be pretty hectic, but you meet and you're around the same people a lot. And I've built some really great friendships from all of that travel. Sometimes you don't want to talk shop, but I have learned quite a lot about what other institutions are doing, mainly those institutions that start with R. But are there some other opportunities where we can kind of build off of that organic networking that's already happening at those college fairs and school visits and things like that?
Well, I think that the biggest thing that someone can do, the first mistake that most admissions officers make when networking at college fairs is not getting the person's name or taking their business card after, because you're traveling with each other all week, so you're at the table next to each other every night for the whole week. So you remember Joe from Vermont, but you don't remember Joe's last name, and you didn't get his card, and you don't have his info. So you can Google him and look on their website, that sort of stuff. And there's times that you don't even know the person's name. You just know that person works at that college. That's University of Delaware. Yeah, I know him. He's University of Delaware. So I think old school tactics like introducing yourself and trading business cards at the end of the night would still definitely be to your benefit for building your network that way. Because I can't tell you how many times, and I've been guilty of it, when you do the, hey, you, good to see you kind of thing after spring travel is over and you take your summer off and you come back for fall travel and you see people you haven't seen in a couple of months. But I think there's definitely ways that those are the ways you definitely expand on that, and then supplement it with the electronic ways. Add those people on LinkedIn. See if they're on Twitter. A lot of colleges now are putting the Twitter handle for the school on the business card. So if they might not be managing that Twitter handle, but you can ask them if they're on Twitter. So you can use those electronic means to supplement those face-to-face interactions.
Right, and we all should be really good at this. We're recruiters. We should be good at those opening questions to kind of draw people in and ask them questions about themselves. I think you've made some really great points about opening lines, I would say. And as a recruiter, you're kind of using those one-liners for people. Oh, I see, your university is using Twitter. Are you using Twitter? We should follow each other and stay in touch. Those kinds of things are really great points. So let's talk about conferences. This is an old way to network, but there's a lot of really great conferences coming up in 2012. I want to make sure that we highlight all of the ones that I know I'm looking forward to. I know you've got a list of ones you're looking forward to too. And we can't talk about admissions conferences without talking about NACAC. NACAC is our big governing body, our big organization that kind of helps guide us through all of our processes. And their annual conference this year is in Denver. I'm really excited to hopefully be there this year. They also do smaller regional conferences. So NACAC is made up of smaller region affiliate organizations that will host their own conferences. And I'm, again, excited to be attending one of those. I'll be at the New York State ACAC in Ithaca, and I'll be speaking there, so that'll be exciting.
Nice.
What are some of the conferences that you are excited about?
Well, first, I want to talk about my campaign to have a new hashtag for the NACAC conference, because what NACAC does every year is they do the hashtag NACAC with 11, 12, whatever. It's in Denver. It's the Mile High City. I want it to be Mile High NACAC. So if we can all agree to do that, that would be great. But on top of that, I mean, every type of conference has its own benefits. I think the regional conferences are a great way to connect with people that are in your own backyard in a more intimate kind of setting. You have a lot more time to meet face to face with presenters because they're there for the whole conference. I think with the national conferences, sometimes it's a little bit harder to develop relationships with people just because of the setting of it, whether you're at a vendor conference like ACT or Noel Levitt's, those sorts of things. They all have great content as far as the presentations go, but I would say that just the networking atmosphere, if you're looking to connect with people in your own backyard, your regional conference is probably the best opportunity and usually the most affordable if your budget is tight. The regional conferences are usually more affordable than a lot of the national conferences. You don't have to worry about plane tickets and that sort of thing. But I know that the conferences that I look forward to every year are quite honestly the national ones, just because there's a wider array of people that you can meet and connect with. And I'm always looking to get kind of a national scope of best practices and those sorts of things. So whether it's like the ACRO conference or the NACAC conference or the Staymates conferences are very well done, very well put together. So there's a lot of opportunity for learning at a lot of these conferences. So it depends on the level of networking, level of engagement you're looking for your network.
Awesome. We just tweeted a whole bunch of resources and links to these conferences. I added another one that's a little bit more geared toward high school counselors. And it is also put on by NACAC. It's their Critical Components Conference that's in Nashville this year. I was trying to get myself there, but I don't know that it's going to work out. I think Nashville is going to be an awesome venue. We're also going to tweet out a list of web and social media conferences. I know a lot of our audience is working kind of both sides of the house like I am. So I want to make sure that if you're someone that's in admissions and doing social media or you're doing some web work for your institution, that you check out some of those conferences too, because they are phenomenal. So you've got that link out.
And on those notes, things like EDU Web, High Ed Web, those are just great conferences for specifically if you're looking to expand into online marketing and that sort of stuff for your job, not necessarily even just for networking, because they're really focused on best practices in those areas as well. So definitely pay attention to that tweet, because those conferences always provide great content. The speakers are always engaged and always very passionate about what they're doing, which helps as well.
Yeah, and if you want to learn how to network, those are the ones to go to. Those people know how to network with each other and will bring you into their circle so fast you won't know what happened to you. So again, that's a big difference that I see between that side of my professional career and the admission side of things, that there's really not that same kind of network. And I find so much value in those web professionals that I've connected with that I hope that admissions folks can start going the same way and using the same tools.
And I think that goes back to the original point about time and about understanding of the tools. And I think that when you work on the technology side and you're in it all the time, it's easier to think, oh, I'll hop on Twitter and ask somebody this question, or I'll go on to LinkedIn and do this. When you're an admissions counselor and you're traveling half your life, reading applications the other half of your life, and on the phone calling high school students the other half of your life, so all three halves of your life, you're more prone to kind of just be in a tunnel and be working on what you're working on, and that's because that's the nature of the job, But it's taking advantage of the opportunities to connect and optimizing those. I mean, when you get an inquiry card at a college fair, you get it into your CRM system so that kid starts to get information. When you get a business card from someone at a conference, you should treat that the same way, with sending that person a "Hey, great to connect" note and all those sorts of things. It'll only benefit you down the road.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered quite a bit of what I wanted to cover tonight. I want to make sure that we start shouting out to our audience if they have any questions that they want to ask about networking or about what resources you find most valuable. Any questions that you might have for Gil, be sure to start tweeting those out now. But before we get to that, there's a few other things that have been going on. Social admission coming out of Zinch is definitely one of them. But there's a few other things. We talked about Follow EDU. That is a great resource for folks who are trying to connect. EDUniverse. I also want to give a shout out to EM Chat. That's every Thursday night at 9. The EM Chat folks are doing all sorts of different kinds of issues, not always focused just towards admissions, but enrollment management issues in general. So I'm going to send out a tweet to remind everyone about that. Are there other things that you can think of that we're missing right now?
I think we've covered a lot. I'm actually posting a tweet to myself to remind myself that I need to start participating in EM Chat more, because I think I definitely participate in the back channel, and usually I'm good at being an active part of a conversation, but I've never really just sat and been a part of it. But I definitely see a lot of really good things coming out of that as well.
Mm-hmm. So if you were to talk to a newbie, someone who we've convinced that they want to start broadening their network, what would you tell them works best?
Oh, I think works best is gonna be different for everyone to an extent. Okay. Just like what you said about marketing with colleges, mm-hmm. It should work well for the college. Marketing yourself is going to work differently for individual people as well. But I would say, back to the original point, that being present matters. So having a presence on LinkedIn, having a presence on Twitter, and not just squatting a name, but also participating in the dialogue. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of how I've been able to be fortunate enough to work at the great company that I work for, mm-hmm. is just by playing nice with people is another big part. Being nice to your vendors. You never know when they're going to be your boss. Be nice to your colleagues, and be nice to people at the college fairs that you're connecting with. I'm a big fan of the term co-opetition, where we all, like I said, we all have the same goals in mind. We're all here to serve students and get them connected to opportunities for higher education. Yes, we have enrollment goals, we have net revenue goals in mind, all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's about coming together to help students find those best options. So I think if you keep the student at the forefront and you're seeking out best ways to connect with the student via news articles, those sorts of things, and then sharing those, you start to become recognized by your peers. So I think sharing is definitely a big part of it also. Awesome.
Yeah, I think just listening to you talk, I've come up with, I think, what my top would be. And I think I put Twitter and that traditional real life networking up at the top for me. Twitter's a great resource and a great tool to find a niche network in. But that real life networking, I think, is something that we could be doing better too. And that's going to help drive that online networking that's so valuable. And we talked a lot about networking with other folks on campus, but we never talked about networking with folks on your own campus, which is really important. So I'm glad that light bulb came on.
Yeah. The admissions office is not an island unto itself. It's part of the greater campus.
Yeah.
So
it's something we need to be reminded of on a daily basis, and I'm sure others who are tuning in from other departments would agree with us. But yeah, getting yourself out on your own campus and networking with other departments that are doing work in your area is hugely, hugely important. So I put Twitter, I think, as my number one online network, and then a huge reminder to myself to try to build that real life network and push it online. I think LinkedIn is definitely a close second. I don't use it every single day, but every week I think I'm checking in and commenting. And then I put a blog at number 3, and I put a blog at number 3 because you should seriously consider blogging if you have something to say. And if you're not being heard, if you're doing great work and you're not finding that collaborative spheres, put it out online. Start getting feedback from others on your work. I think that's a hugely valuable resource. But everyone doesn't need to blog. That's not a necessity to build a network.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what about people who aren't tech savvy? What do we say to them? Are there any
tech savvy?
Get tech savvy, right? But is there that much of a learning curve out there?
I don't think so, and I think that we lean on Twitter a lot because we're active on it and we're good at it. I claim we're good at it. We think we're good, whatever we want to call it. I think that the reality is that old school face-to-face networking and following up with traditional methods still does work. And that develops a really solid way of communicating. I know that many of my closest connections are people that I've met at a conference face-to-face. We went to lunch and chatted for an hour, and now we speak frequently on all the networks and get together at all the conferences and share and collaborate and all that kind of stuff. So it's if you're not tech savvy, you lean on the traditional means and then supplement as you learn and experiment. Nobody's the best tweeter overnight. You can create an account and start playing as a way to figure that out.
Yeah, I want to make sure we get to questions, and I totally agree that you can pick up this Twitter thing. I've been training people who have never used it before to use it, and it takes a few months. There is, I think, a learning curve there, but once you've got it and once you understand the value, you're going to be hooked, and it's going to be a great resource to you. So one of the questions we have coming in on the Admissions Live hashtag is to talk a little bit about what NACAC is like and what those conferences are like, what topics are covered. Is there a web track usually at those conferences? I think it's a little bit different depending on the region. I've never been to the national conference. Can you speak a little to that?
Yeah, I think the national conference, there's many reasons to go. One is the exhibiting. Basically, every service provider in the industry has an exhibiting booth at NACAC. So it's a great way to kind of get information about new tools and resources that are available that you can then bring back to your staff. There's obviously going to be a lot of sessions on varying topics. Because there's guidance counselors there, there's admissions officers there, so there's different tracks and different levels of experience. And the topics are really all over the board: international recruitment, transfer student recruitment, financial aid. It's all over the place. So at the NACAC conference, there's definitely a lot of information to be had. And then again, that great Mile High NACAC hashtag that everyone is going to be using. That there's going to be a great back channel to follow as well. And actually, to be honest though, with conferences, my experience, the activity of the back channel on Twitter at these conferences, at most conferences I've been to the last couple of years, really the non-high ed web, non-social media related conferences don't really have it yet. Right. But they're supportive of it, and to their credit, NACAC has a Twitter account. NACAC creates hashtags for their events. So do the regional forums for College Board. They all have hashtags to create back channels. It's just, I think the audience, because they're the seasoned admissions professionals, they might not necessarily be into that quite yet. But it's getting there, and I think that when I participate in conferences, I work very hard to at least, if nothing else, be the back channel. When I'm in sessions, I'll use the hashtag and I'll share it out, and I'll see people sending me messages and retweeting and being a part of the dialogue that aren't even there. And I think that's the huge benefit of the Twitter hashtag creating a back channel of conferences, is that people who aren't even in attendance are now getting access to this information and being able to connect and share with it when they're not even there. Yeah. But they're not for ACAC conferences and those sort of things. To be honest, the Twitter hashtags need to pick up a little bit more, but I think it'll happen with time.
Yeah, and I have to agree. Like I said, I haven't been to the national conference before. I'm hoping to be there this fall. I'm really excited about that. But I agree with the back channel. And at the regional level, I've been to a few regional conferences in the Northeast, and there hasn't been a web track. There has been some sessions for web, and when I see them for web, they're really for social media and recruiting in social media. So I really don't see enough of sessions that are offered for web folks. And that's a shame, because so much of our interface with students is on the web. And it's kind of a scary thing that we're not talking about that more. What I tend to see at these regional conferences is a theme around the conference, and they try to drive the sessions toward that common theme, whether it's college access or it's maybe new media trends would be a nice one. I don't know, but they tend to pick a theme for the regional conference and then roll with that as they pick presentations. I don't know if that's the best way to go. There's always some sessions that are great that do sneak in that aren't surrounded around that theme, but
well, the positives is that the regional conferences, they know that it's likely that a lot of the institutions are facing similar challenges. Then you can't really focus that well on those topics at a national level, but it's easier to focus at a regional level. But you're right. I mean, there's to go back to the kind of web traffic things, a lot of the social media and admissions sessions are, this is how we use our Facebook page, and these are how many likes that we have, and that sort of thing. And when it's just a difference of talking about strategy versus tactics. And I think that a lot of the admissions sessions relating to use of social media are really focused on the tactics. These are how we do things. Where if you go to the web conferences, it's more overarching strategy. And I think that that's where we need to move for sure.
Yeah. So many things running through my head right now, talking about conferences and where we can go and how networking could really help. I think, for those national conferences, you do see a lot of the director level folks there. Not so many assistant director, admissions counselor level folks are, or colleges, they don't have the budgets to send full staffs out to these national conferences where they might be able to send them to at a regional level. So the ability to have a back channel running at the national conference for more people to follow, live streaming at these conferences, I think needs to start happening. And then also the ability for folks to kind of tune in to those regional conferences that might not be in their area. So you might know that, hey, these folks down in Texas are doing some really cool things with this part of their recruiting strategy, and they have a regional conference that I want to follow along. That's not happening right now. I think that should be too. So, there's so many reasons why we should be building this network amongst ourselves. And I hope we've covered some strategy, some kind of ideas that everyone can start to pick up and start using so we can start collaborating a little bit more and get some good work done.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. I think we've eaten up our time. I think we're actually right on time to kind of cut this short. And if there are other questions that we might have missed, I apologize. We're going to follow along in that Admissions Live hashtag on Twitter and catch you there. We're also going to be posting this show in the archive, and you can follow us along on Twitter after we're done. So I hope you catch up with us later. I hope you build our network. Follow Gil and I. Let's get connected. Join the LinkedIn groups and start your conversations there. Gil, thanks so much again for coming on tonight. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you. I mean, this is a topic that we need to be talking about. I'm happy you brought it to the forefront. Appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we will see you again, hopefully next week, for another exciting episode of Admissions Live. We come to you every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on highroadlive.com. Thanks.